We went out to meet with Hurren of Southern Response to discuss the issues surrounding retaining walls.
Retaining walls are structures that effectively retain soil on slopes. In Canterbury you'll see a number of retaining walls on the Port Hills which retain structures like driveways or garages, or even something as simple as fences. One of the biggest challenges for settling retaining wall claims has been well, at least in Southern Response's case, the lack of cover. So under the AMI policies, which Southern Response is responsible for, retaining walls are actually excluded from coverage under the insurance contract. So that's been a challenge for us in the sense that there's often at people's homes or houses retaining walls which form part of the building platform or the structure which we intend to build off, or even access, and that's meant that there's been a financial shortfall for a lot of those customers. There's the complexity associated with it that a number of these walls are damaged, which it's not clear who the actual owner of the wall is, and if the ownership isn't clear, then who's going to pay for the damaged wall isn't clear either. So what Southern Response is doing is we're going to our customers' properties and we're willing to assess all the walls that are at the site and make an informed assessment about which ones are damaged and which ones will need to be repaired. Central government, and the likes of Sarah and MB, insurers and the Earthquake Commission have all been working fairly closely together to set up a database where interested parties that need to know certain information to reinstate retaining walls, or who owns these walls, can put that information into a central database so that information can be extracted so that insurers or EQC or whoever's involved in the reinstatement process, if it's a homeowner, can make informed decisions about what walls are at the site and what they might need to be looking out for before they commence the rebuild process. Some of the ideas that we're willing to work with the customer over is to use some of the funds that might otherwise have been applied to the house to the retaining wall. We're happy to put them in touch with funders such as lending institutions to see if they're willing to facilitate lending for those retaining walls. And the other thing that Southern Response has done is we've been paying for the entire assessment cost and design costs for determining how you would actually repair those retaining walls that affect the building platform. So in essence, what we're asking customers to contribute to now is the construction costs for those retaining walls that affect the building platform.
Well, it certainly is a very complex issue, and I'm joined now by John Goddard of Community Law Canterbury. Welcome, John. Thanks for coming in and talking to me. The whole retaining walls issue, so complex. Why is it so difficult?
Well, it's difficult because retaining wall issues capture all of the complexities and challenges of residential rebuilds in Christchurch. They involve both legal and technical uncertainties that need to be resolved in order for claims to be settled.
So basically they're a really good example of just the entire process, just down to this one small issue. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's just how complex and challenging it is, and how important it is for homeowners to get really good legal and technical advice.
What are some of the main issues? We were talking just before while we were watching that video clip there. Littleton is an issue. So what are some of the things that the people of Littleton are having to consider?
Some of the things they're having to consider is whether or not retaining walls should be dealt with as part of a land claim or part of a house claim.
Right, okay.
And this comes up when they're key to the structural integrity of a house.
And is that the legal bit in there? It needs to be part of the structural integrity?
Under the Earthquake Commission Act, if they're part of the house, then they will be repaired to an as-new standard.
Right.
But if they're part of the land claim, the homeowner will receive a payment based on market value, which usually will not be enough to repair the wall.
Because these are incredibly expensive things to be able to repair, aren't they? I mean, it was referred to there, Casey was talking about design, implementation, and then the actual building as well. So
absolutely. A number of these walls need engineer design solutions, and those are not cheap.
No. So, John, can you explain to me, or give me some examples of some of the cases that you've actually been working with?
Absolutely. One of the examples is where there is coverage for repairing retaining walls in an insurance policy. The insurer has cash settled the claim, but the property owner is surrounded by 6 different neighbours, and the retaining wall is on the boundary with those neighbours. What the property owner then has to do is negotiate with each of those neighbours so that the walls can be repaired.
So you really need to make sure before you cash settle that you have enough money in that cash settlement to be able to accommodate settling with all 6 of your neighbours.
Absolutely, and you also need to have made contact with each of those neighbours and understand whether or not they have insurance cover or whether or not they're able to fund repairs.
And then I suppose there's that percentage of who's contributing what to the repair of that particular wall as well.
Absolutely, and there are different ways of calculating who should pay what, and those calculations don't always tally up.
And it comes back again and again to this case-by-case basis, doesn't it?
It does. Every case turns on its own particular set of circumstances.
John, can you also explain to me what is meant by beneficial ownership?
Beneficial ownership is defined in the Butterworth's Law Dictionary as the right of substantial enjoyment. So it means that you have the right to use property, but you don't own it outright.
So is this something that's actually in people's, in their legal title to a property where they have beneficial ownership? How does beneficial ownership come into it?
Often it will be noted on a person's legal property or title.
Right, okay.
So that is a crucial document which homeowners should get hold of.
So you need to be able to see that document, see now if you do happen to have those couple of words in your title, then that gives you more room to negotiate with councils, bordering neighbours. How does that work?
On the title, it will often be noted as an easement or a covenant.
Right, okay.
So that's what you're looking for. And once that's there, then there's an argument that a homeowner can raise with EQC or their private insurer that their legal rights, their beneficial rights to that property should be recognised, and a claim to repair a wall should be accepted.
And needs to be upheld. So there may actually be a legal basis for you to be able to stand on to argue that you require more money to repair this particular retaining wall.
That's right, but that is an extremely specialised area of law.
Yeah.
So homeowners are recommended to seek legal advice.
I think actually that's what it all comes down to, isn't it? Is firstly it's case by case, and secondly is get advice and get the right advice.
These issues are so difficult that it's not realistic to expect owners to be able to navigate their way through them on their own. I think most homeowners would benefit hugely from having expert assistance.
I agree. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Now, after the break, we're going to look at a slightly simpler issue, in my perspective, compared to retaining walls. We're going to be talking cash settlements with Mark Rackley-Gale, who's the manager of the BNZ Specialist Future Hub team right here in Canterbury.